Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to that which will not be named the Voldemort as it spreads across the world and says hello to everybody. We're going to be talking about something a little bit different that normally I wouldn't think I'd be talking about, but it seems relevant. And it's certainly a TFT conversation. So we'll be getting into uh, prepping for the Boogaloo. And we'll get into what that is in a minute. But of course, first, I want to go over here and say hello to the guests. First, we have this amazingly skilled person who makes things with his hands, a Model 3. How you doing, dude?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Chester?
I'm awesome, man, and you do a lot of things I would love to be able to do. I'm not very good at those things, though. I mean, I tried my hand at blacksmithing about 30 years ago, and I was very poor at it. I've tried a lot of hand type of things, and I'm just not good at it. I mean, if I take my time, I guess. But so I have a little bit of envy for you in your ability to do such things. It might have something to do with the
Well,
fact that I'm horribly unartistic. I don't know.
well, it's not that. It's patience because everything is just a system of operations. So if
Hmm.
you're one thing I've found that as I've gotten older
Hmm.
is that I've learned to kind of enjoy tedium
Ah.
and the people laugh at me when I say that. That's why JP he laughs. He says things like learn to enjoy the minutia, and that's what I mean by that. Learn to
Yeah.
enjoy the process, no matter every part of it, and then your skill will go through the roof.
Yeah. Well, JP's pretty good model maker, dude. Or model constructor, I guess would be a better word. But I do miniature painting, and that applies. I just don't have a lot of those kind of skills, unfortunately. My skills are elsewhere. But it is cool, dude. It's very, very cool. But you are at a completely different level, which is neat. And always interesting seeing what you're seeing what you got going on. But of course, we have another panelist here, ladies and gentlemen. We have to introduce, and as he sails across the Pacific quickly to the Atlantic, he looks down upon the globe that is afire and ablaze, and he says, "I, I may have the solution." As lightning flares from his butt, as he
From
rockets
his
quicker
buttocks.
in his buttocks, as he flows quicker into the European continent, he says, "Don't be stupid. Don't have Hug a Chinese Day. Solution given. He is Thundero."
This intro is getting longer and longer.
I know,
Why
dude.
are things always coming out of orifices with you, Chester? Can we talk about this for a
we
second?
we could we
You have
could.
an oral orifice fixation
I
for some
might.
reason.
I might.
At some point, you're going to have a pre-recorded video lead in, I think.
I might have to, dude. I might have to. Uh, it's getting difficult. But yeah, no. Well, I have this concept, Thundera, about this hard rock as an iron tie concept of how one should use one's own uh, tools.
Buttocks.
Hmm. 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 I wasn't going to go the homosexual way, but that's cool model. I'm good with that.
I'm
I
just
don't judge you, brother. I don't judge you.
I'm just gonna smile and nod. What's gonna happen? I'm gonna smile and nod.
Sweet. Well, uh, Thundero and the model, we're here to talk about something interesting today. Uh, very interesting. And I'm kind of curious what the chat's going to think about it. Let me go over and see who's in the chat. We got a few people watching. We got Roger Heller. Hello. He's always nice to see you here. We got Joe as well. Back off, Boogaloo. We got Ray Thulu says, "Yay." Rywell Steven says, "Howdy ho." And Joe has a question right from the beginning. I can't believe I missed last week's Q episode. I just started chasing the white rabbit. That's probably what I was doing last Sunday to make me miss the show. Chasing the white rabbit, is that have some reference to heroin? I'm not really sure what that means.
Well,
No.
chasing the dragon is heroin,
Yes,
correct?
that's true. That's true. Thundero would know.
The
Chasing
white
that
rabbit, I
white
think, is
rabbit.
psychedelics.
I
Oh,
have absolutely no idea. I am completely and utterly straight edge. I don't touch drugs.
I have a question. Where's Slick Jimmy tonight? Because he would be interesting for this conversation because of his connection to the Mormon Church.
well, he probably come in later. He's usually, I think, an hour of us doing this is kind of around when he's doing stuff. That's why he's usually at Walmart or something, right?
Uh,
So I
Preparing
imagine
for the Boogaloo.
he is. He is. But Before we get into that, do you guys have any kind of news you'd like to report before we jump into the topic?
Um, well, my wife just informed me that the hospital they had been shipping all the COVID patients around here to is now full, so they're now all coming to her hospital. And the geniuses at her hospital made her unit the COVID unit. So that's fun. Um, Other than that, not really. Everything's on lockdown. I guess Boris Johnson was taken to the hospital. I don't know if he's still there, but he
Well,
tested positive for it. Now he's at. Last I heard, they took him to the hospital.
yeah, well, the unfortunate thing is his fiance has it and she's pregnant, dude. I don't know
Mm,
the medical knowledge on that situation, but doesn't sound good, you know.
no.
Yeah, for sure. It doesn't matter whether you care about politics or other countries or not. Certainly keep them in your prayers, man. That sucks a lot, dude. You
And
know.
also, Justin Trudeau's wife and Idris Elba, they apparently had some kind of a liaison, and they both have it.
Yeah, no, that's we have that information from a while back, and of course, a lot of celebrities do. And Slick Jimmy, speaking of Slick, he's proposed the concept of why do so many celebrities and world leaders have this? Now, the world leaders I get a little bit more because they have to meet with people and such. I kind of get that, but why do so many celebrities have it? Now, it could be that they're simply just ignored everything in the beginning and we're having their big old secret parties, or it could just simply be that they're full of it and they want attention. I don't know.
Yeah, our treasure, a comedic treasure, Kathy Griffin, she got busted actually.
Oh,
Yeah, she did.
God.
That's true. That is true. Yeah. I imagine there's others as well. That's one thing is I'm really happy about here in Japan. Of course, the Japanese don't do those kind of things really, but we haven't had many celebrity types that have become affected at all. We did have one, a very beloved character. He's a comedian, and he did like a kids' pet show for a long time, and he passed away last week. So. That was a real big blow to Japan for sure. But it's
Mm,
different here because people are not publicizing it or politicizing the situation at all. Now, to be fair, the Japanese government doesn't really do politics anyway. They're just not really good at it. I guess it's not in the nature of the Japanese, but it's interesting to watch both worlds because I have I'm stepping on over a fence, right? So I see what happens here in Asia and I see what happens in America, and it's being handled very differently, dude. Because in the West, everything is politicized. I mean, don't let a good emergency go to waste, right?
Of
Um,
course not.
but yeah, so I don't know. It's getting kooky. But I have to say, with the good old President Trump, which it's funny, we really worry about saying the Voldemort or calling him by its name here because YouTube will hammer you. But I kind of wonder every time we say Trump, they probably do the same thing, don't they?
probably.
Yeah. But dude, I saw the other day we were doing a stream and someone had put up we were making some I don't know why but someone put up a just an image of the toilet sign, men or women, right? and
Hmm.
and YouTube blocked it.
Oh boy.
Mm,
Just the freaking
lovely.
toilets. I mean, this is how neurotic and out of their minds these people are, dude. But what was the point I was trying to make? Oh, who cares? But but I mean
Well,
it's
here's another thing, kind of tying back into what we're going to be talking about today. Apparently, China's got areas back on full quarantine again
yeah.
because they're completely full of actual literal manure,
Oh, they were never
and
out
by
of
about
it, to
everything.
be honest with you.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're just trying to get
and
their factories moving, is all. They don't care
yeah,
how many die,
so
dude.
that they're getting hit again. The U.S. Intelligence agencies, which you can trust them about as far as you can throw a boulder, but they claim that at least 40,000 more people have died in China than they've let on,
Yeah, at least,
which
yeah.
I think it's a lot more than that.
I agree. Yeah.
Well,
So
just from what
we're
I've
not even, I don't think we're really at the crest of this yet. The local health administration around here, they're not making this public yet,
mhm.
but they're preparing for the worst of it here in May.
No, there already is a COVID 20 now. There's a new strain, so it's been redesignated with the current year, and there is a COVID 20.
Okay. Well,
But
there you go.
if this continues for too long, and that's not going to be too much longer, especially here in the States. I think our dance party's going to happen one
Well,
way or
now,
the other.
and that's why it's connected, and that's why it's a topical point that we're bringing up
Mm.
today. My news is not sad or depressing like you guys. I got my new car the other day, and I
About
spent.
time.
Yeah, I know, right? 4 freaking months, but I went and drove it around for a lot, like 2 days. I just drove, and I was a happy boy, man. I was such a happy boy. I mean, that car is, I mean, I know some of you guys could care less about cars in general, or particularly my car, and that's fine,
Especially.
especially my car. But D- dude, man, that is such a pleasure to drive that car, dude. I mean, I've owned a lot of cars in my life, dude. And the thing is just, it's got power on the bottom, power on the top. It's smooth. It just literally sucks itself into a corner. And I was just sitting there chatting with my wife, and I looked down and I was doing 160. Didn't even know it, right?
Jeez.
Does it have a giant spoiler on the back?
It well, no, I went for the slighter spoilers. I don't like giant spoilers.
Which 160?
Oh, R 160. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's a 190 car, dude. Easy 190 plus. Yeah, yeah. Although I did push her up to about 180, and I mean I could have got more, but it was getting a little hairy, so I backed up. But
Gotcha.
Yeah, because I didn't have yeah I don't have many stretches I can really get on it like that anyway. But I do have some plans of engine mods and stuff like that. And my mechanic thinks that we might be able to get the thing up to 450 as far as horsepower.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And that's in Japanese engineering with Japanese handling and stuff like that. So it's just a ridiculous car. I'm not really worried about that right now. That'll some a future project, but I just had a great time. Just so you know that Chester's happy boy.
Well, the good news is you can. Most of the roads around here, anyway, are pretty well
Oh
empty.
yeah,
So
ours too.
you can just open it up if you want.
Oh yeah, and I went south too, and there was no one on the road, dude. I just freaking opened it, and those are brand new highways too. So they were
Nice.
only built a few years ago, so they're smooth. Because that's the only negative thing I have about it. It's got those Eagle F1 Goodyears on it, and those things are great for speed on the track. But boy, they don't like a bump. Those are those thin
Mm,
wall ones.
hmm
So and boy, I don't want to. I'm terrified to have to replace those damn things. That's what, 3 grand, 4 grand to replace the entire car.
hmm
That's not. I don't want to think about it.
Just get a new car, kind of like a printer, you know.
Right?
Go trade
Okay,
that one in and use it
yeah.
be a
Forget
down
about
payment on a new one.
cartridges. Just go buy a new printer and
Yeah.
get the free ones with it.
Yeah, but no, I'm having a lot of fun, and I didn't get that stupid big spoiler. I don't like it. I just went with the
Does it
standard.
have neon lights that light up the ground around you?
God no, God, I'm from the '80s, man. What the hell? Um, uh,
Oh, so it's got hydraulics. I got you.
yeah, well,
I just imagine everything as Tokyo Drift.
yeah, right. Well, these cars, of course, or earlier models were in all the Fast and Furious, of course. But Yeah, no, I was. The funny thing is, I drove down to a road station because it's quite a distance. So, and I don't want to go into the towns. I don't want to go into the restaurants. I mean, you're supposed to be not doing stuff, so I didn't go anywhere significant. I just went to a road station, just stretch the legs of the car, right? And
Mm.
so I went in and I parked, and there were two guys there that I chatted with for a little while. And it was funny because I have a brand new, Japanese muscle, I guess you could call it, Japanese sports car. And They each one had a Z28, a 1972 Z28, and the other guy had a 1969 Camaro.
Jeez.
Yeah, right. They were doing the same thing I was, just stretching legs, getting out, taking a drive, and I sat chatting with those guys for a little bit. It was funny. But
My mother had a Robin's Egg Blue Camaro convertible that year,
mhm.
and my father wrecked it.
Oh God, oh God,
Totaled it.
yeah. But the dude did a good job because I mean I could tell from the wide body package he put on it, and I mean the old style wide body, not these new ones where they show the bolts. I don't know why they think that looks good, but the old wide body package and all the other stuff he put on the car. I mean he dropped 50 grand on that car easy just on. I didn't even look under the hood, right? Because he could have had a crate in there for all I know, right? But
Right.
anyway, and we're off subject. I just wanted to.
We can get it back to subject though, because
We
we're
can.
going to talk about prepping for the great dance party to come.
Uh-huh.
We're going to have to talk about vehicles, because you need a Boog vehicle, or what are you even doing?
That's true. I don't know if my car would be the perfect choice for that though. Probably not.
Nick, I don't know.
I don't know. But okay, let's jump into it. Let me go ahead over here and let me do my introduction of it. Then I think we've certainly warmed up enough. All right, so here we go. Now, what is the Boogaloo? Well, first of all, it's a Latin dance. Pretty nice one, actually. It's kind of fun, old fashioned. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this Boogaloo. Aw, Pepe. Uh, so waiting for the Boogaloo like a Boogaloo Pepe. Just on a side with Pepe, my wife and I love Pepe. Right. I remember years ago when this all started hitting the fan. I think this is something that's actually is attributed to Sargon of Akkad. I think he is the one that started the whole Keck thing, right? We just
No,
thought
he's
Pepe
not.
was.
4chan. 4chan did it.
You sure it
He's the
wasn't
one who
Sargon? He's
popularized
the
it,
one that
like,
Yeah.
popularized. All right, we'll give
outside
him
of
that. I'll take that.
4chan.
But my wife and I love Pepe. We just think she thinks it's so cute, right? And they hate, and especially because they're hating on a freaking cartoon character, which once again they don't get. And that's kind of the point I want to make today about the fact that people don't get each other anymore because no conversation is happening. I think that's what comes down to. So, what is this Boogaloo? Well, the Boogaloo is talking about Civil War in America again. That's what it's on about. But the problem is we have some really, really insidious and lying type of folks that are, doing their typical thing. I'm going to come back to these guys in a minute, but there's a couple things I want to look at here. Now, first of all, this is just NBC News. You can check all kind of news. They've covered it all, from NPR to NBC, MSNBC, et cetera, right? And they all have this same concept. What is a boogaloo? How online calls for a violent uprising are hitting the mainstream. Now, the general idea is this is some kind of alt-right group of people who want to attack the government. Now, they're all following that same narrative. And of course, the reality is that's not even close to the truth. Not even a little bit. It's quite the
No, and
opposite.
even if the Boogaloo, if some people are more familiar with SHTF, that's what the Boogaloo is, or
Yeah.
Teotwaki, the end of the world as we know it. So in prepper circles, there's a few different phrases, but
Right.
that's all the Boogaloo is.
It is. It's basically this fear that they're going to have to defend themselves from a tyrannical government. It's not about let's get together and attack the government. It's quite the opposite. It's let's defend ourselves from it. Of course, in these day and age, I mean, I'm not in the States. You guys know that. Of course, these two guys are going to be much more prevalent today than me. But the simple fact of the matter is, your rights are being trampled upon. I mean, it's very clear that the Democrats, and I'm not even going to say the progressive socialists either, all Democrats and some centrists too, they want to take away your First Amendment right. They want to take away your Second Amendment right. They've already taken your Fourth Amendment right, by the way, right?
And the neocons, don't
Yeah,
forget
no,
them.
I know I did include them. That's why I said centrist. But
Well, they're not centrists.
No, that's probably true. They are a little bit kind of left leaning. But my point is these fears are not unwarranted. Especially because it used to be more subtle, but these days they're just right out in your face saying they're going to they want these things to be taken away. I mean, the freedom of speech, they hate that. They can't stand that. And of course, the reason they can't is because they're a bunch of Marxists, right? They're communists. That's what the
We can't
communists
just
do.
let people say things, Chester.
I know, I know, I know. This is the general idea. Like I said, there's plenty of news. We can go find others that are just the same idea. See, Boogaloo is the new far right slang for Civil War. Yes and no. It's not actually, but this is the narrative. And it's being attacked, and for me, every time I see something being attacked by the media, well, now I have to go look at it because they're probably lying just straight out their butt, right? 100% about it. Another interesting thing here with this. Oh, stop it! Knock it off. Stupid thing. Now, I thought this was interesting. I looked at a few videos, but this kid I thought was interesting. Let's take a look at him. His name is King's Guns and Gear Review. So thank you for that. And a lot of Boogaloo look like this. Now, this is not a warrior. Now, I'm an old guy. I'm out of shape, but I still got my stacks on, right? So I mean I can come at it if I have to, but I'm trained and experienced at such things. This person isn't going to survive a second in any kind of conflict. And the interesting thing about him, he knows that, right? He's well aware of that. And he was very honest in this video. I thought he because when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh Jesus, look at this idiot!" But no, he's not. He was very honest about it. I chose this one guy because he looks completely unlike something you would expect. And understand he's actually wearing the uniform of the Boogaloo, which is interesting. I don't know why they chose Hawaiian shirts, but they did. But now he came and he read this little article from a group, which I'm going to show you in a minute, and I thought it was very interesting. And this is from the Big Igloo Boys, which is one of the big Boogaloo groups, I guess. And he sent this out. They sent this out to some news agencies. And take a look at this. It's actually fairly well written. For months, you have painted a completely false picture of who we are as a group. As a group, we aren't even sure who we are. We are traditional anarchists, Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, men, women, straight, and gay. We are your sons and daughters. We are your brothers, your sisters, your children, and parents. Are there racists amongst our numbers? Undoubtedly. However, we call them out at every turn. We disavow them and put as much distance between us as we can. Lessons you would do well to learn instead of voting them into office. Because we have demanded you demonize us for, because we have demands, you demonize us for a few among us that are garbage humans. While at the same time, you allow those among your numbers to exist unquestioned and unchallenged. That is a very true statement, dude. Let's see. You portray us as being full of hate. We have no hate in our hearts. We sue for peace and request that our rights be left alone, not because of the Constitution, in spite of it. I love that statement, dude. Our rights do not come from any document. Those documents were meant to protect us from exactly what is happening today. Amen. Right? It is you that have created us. For 2 decades, you have cheered us on as we waged war in foreign lands. For 2 decades, you have told us we are heroes and deserve praise and adoration. For 2 decades, you have turned a blind eye to our call for peace, to our request to be left alone, to our desire to live as free men. Now you claim surprise when we feel painted into a corner, when we feel as though we have been pushed into standing up to say enough is enough, you call us evil? Many of us believe that the time for talk is over, and the fault for that I lay at your feet. We have asked to be heard. Instead, we've been ignored as increasingly oppressive legislation is passed. That's true. We will be silenced no longer. We will be heard with or without you. To illustrate my point, I am told an article was written about us. I have not seen this article, nor were any of us contacted about it. You clearly have your minds made up as to who and what we are. You could not be more wrong. I am asking you to end this campaign of disinformation, end the fight against those who are standing up for all freedoms, end your one sided portrayal of us as madmen. We are men who want to remain free. We are men who do not want to be forced to become what you call us. None of us want violence, although we can be violent men. Oldman and the rest of the big igloo boys. Now, I thought that was very interesting and poignant. I mean, it's not the most beautifully written or most eloquent thing ever, but it's not bad, dude. That's not bad. And you know, I get where they're coming from. And the interesting thing for me, guys, is I don't live in the States, right? I don't. I
Oh,
live
you
up.
don't?
No. So, I mean, meaning that do I have a say in the matter? Maybe not. I did come over here to their page and kind of looking at it, and what I see a lot of here, as I did on many of the sites I checked, was memery. A lot of it. And it's kind of the same stuff of these people who've been mocking and joking at the idiots on the left, and having a good laugh, and the people on the left not understanding humor and therefore calling them out as some manner of, German, security force or intelligence force of the past, and that's what it seems a lot of it to me. Now, do you guys think? It's truly more than that, or am I on the right track?
Well, the anytime you hear the accusations of Nazi and
Mm.
stuff like
Well,
that,
thank
put
you.
it in the
There you go.
same
Copyright strike. Excellent. All right.
put put it in the same category as, oh, you got one?
Oh, no, no. Go
Did
ahead.
you?
I just
Oh,
you
okay.
used the N word.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, just put it in the same category as racist, homophobe, anti-Semite, misogynist. It's another term that's been uh, capitalized to disarm, and that's its only purpose.
True. But is there any truth
Every,
to the fact that these guys want to start an actual revolution against the state, the government? Is that true?
I think so, yes.
Oh, interesting. All right.
And I'll tell you why. Because the cold fact of the matter is, it's probably the only way that things will get reversed, because the other methods have been taken away. So you do not voting our way out of this is never going to happen. It's so far beyond that. Um, the police have been fundamentally changed. Law enforcement has been changed in the states to where now the Supreme Court has ruled that police have no obligation to protect the public.
I know. How weird is
They are
that?
more in line to protect the system and keep it in place.
Yeah.
So they are there to make sure that you cannot remove a bad judge or a politician. They are basically a security force that's been put in, retrained. It's been restructured from the top to the bottom, even as far as um, the intelligence requirements, educational requirements, the training. As soon as they started to send our police chiefs over to Israel to train with the IDF, policing in the United States fundamentally changed from protect and serve to protecting you to death.
Yeah.
Is what happened.
No, that's a fair point about the police, dude. I mean, in general, I believe most police are good people who are just doing their job. And a lot of the nonsense you hear about the police is just a lie. It's not true.
Well, and I don't
Ferguson
believe
was a
that.
big lie,
Yeah,
right?
I
But
don't believe that most of them. I think there's a large segment of the police that thin blue line is also a very thin line between a criminal and a
well,
legit public servant.
that is fair. Psychologically, the average person who goes to become a police officer is a person who wants to hold power. They tend to be those bullies you saw in school. That is psychologically true. But what I meant more was that the general cop wants to actually be a cop. He wants to do his job. Is what I meant. There are some bad apples. There always are, no matter where you go. But in general, I think police are trying to do their job. I think one of the big problems that changed for me is when I was a kid, you had to pass a psyche valve to become a cop, right? And they were very strict, and you had to have a certain level of IQ. Now, I'm not a big proponent of IQ because I think it's not necessarily a good measure of intelligence anyway. But nevertheless, you had to have a certain level of IQ. They changed this, dude. They now, if your IQ is too high, they won't even hire you. What is that, dude? What is that? But that's a truthful
Yeah,
statement I just made, by the way. That is true,
and
and
I
it can be documented.
and I do have some experience in this. Not only do I have a lot of close friends that are law enforcement. I have a lot of family,
So
including
do I.
some that has been chief of police of cities. I've also trained with the police quite extensively in a number of different things, and a very honest police officer will tell you what is really going on. And fortunately, I have access to someone who happens to be a counter sniper for Secret Service and also a SWAT instructor.
Wow, you know my
And
dad? Oh, sorry.
no, and he will outright say that not all cops are good guys. In fact, a lot of cops are bad guys, and a lot of cops would go that way.
Hmm.
So that's one of the fears about the Boogaloo is that whenever you have a situation like that, especially if it were to really progress towards like balkanization or a complete loss of services, one of the big worries that is in law enforcement is uh, most police officers only hang out with other police officers,
Yeah.
or they have a very small circle of friends. And so you would have a situation where a lot of police officers would band together, and that would be your first opportunity to have these local warlords and these local gangs who also have access to armories and lots of ammunition and weapons.
Yeah. And now, and I know what you're saying is right. And I want Thundero to jump in here and be part of this, but just to kind of counter what you said a little bit, uh, do keep in mind what happened in Virginia, right? This Northam governor, he's an absolute tool. This guy right here, right? He proposed some just literally the banning of the Second Amendment is basically what he was going after, and the people of Virginia and around the country rose up against it, and a lot of those. Police, sheriffs, in those counties stood with the people, dude, and they passed their own laws saying that we will not follow the state law, right? They made themselves sanctuary towns, sanctuary villages against it. So, I mean, there's an example of the police actually joining with the people, right? Quite
Oh, and
clearly,
you will
a few months
definitely
ago.
have that as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
See, one thing they did after 9/11 that really went into overdrive was they started to militarize the police.
yeah,
And part of that was the psych evaluations, which they still do psych evaluations, but the nature of them has changed. So for instance, they like to have they don't want someone in too much debt, but they like to have someone in a moderate amount of debt. For one thing, that makes them afraid to lose their job. They also drop the IQ requirement,
they
and
did.
they really look for a certain psychological profile in individuals, which is more along the lines of someone who will really just take orders, who really likes to belong
Yeah,
to a club, and because that's what these police organizations become, and that's why you have a propensity for uh, police to really look after each other and kind of look the other way on some things like speeding. Maybe the wife's been getting some prescription drugs, and I personally know cases of this. There's huge amounts of drug use, alcoholism, suicide, domestic violence in relationships with police.
right. Well,
I've talked to
understand the Blue
dispatchers.
Brotherhood. I get that, and I don't
Sure.
necessarily have a problem with it either. I get that, but I'm just saying that I don't know that there's certain police departments I would be more worried about than others. I'm just saying that there are many police, I think, across the country that stand with the people, and Virginia is an example of it. And I think Virginia is a very important part of today's conversation. Thundera, would you like to jump in, dude?
You want to know the scariest part? The honest to God's truth
Mm,
is at the end of the day, the police don't matter. If the gun owners in this country,
that's
all,
true.
or not even all, just enough of them, decide that's enough. Doesn't have to be we agree on everything. We don't have all the answers, but what you're doing is not going to happen.
Hmm.
There's not an army in the world big enough to stop them.
That is fair.
That's
I mean,
reality.
you're talking there's over 300 million guns in America, and after this current emergency, the gun sales have gone up. And it's interesting to bring into the topic because it is covered within the current Voldemort that's happening. Is the
Mhm.
fact that there are certain states in the west coast of America, not to be named, that have basically banned you from buying any guns. Now,
Hmm.
there's an interesting. I saw this up here, and you can find this anywhere when in this conversation. But my rights to protect myself should not be infringed. You do realize that any gun law in America is actually breaking the Constitution. In in
Correct.
in in reality, when you read the Constitution, it's very clear. I mean, there are certain points of the Bill of Rights in the Constitution itself that can be a little vague, but that's not. The Second Amendment is the clearest thing you could possibly state. Shall not be infringed. Shall not. And it's not just
Okay.
talking about the right to own and bear arms, not guns, arms, right? It also
Well, yeah,
says you shall not infringe the
and
right of the militia.
correct. And then and then when asked, if you asked any of the founders who the militia was, in fact, there's even legal documents stating who the militia is, and it's basically just everybody who's not a public officer,
Oh, the
basically.
federal papers were very clear. They expounded upon what
Yes,
they
even
meant. That's
even afterwards, there was court cases and stuff expounding. Like I believe there was. I want to say it was in Virginia, but it might not have been. There was one expounding on that where they were questioning what that means, basically, and it was George Mason, which is where that line came from, that wording came from, shall not be infringed, all of that. He's the one who originally wrote it, and they asked him, and he said, "Well, it's everybody except for a few public officers and a few exceptions, but pretty much everybody is the militia. Every citizen is the
And
militia."
they assumed "shall not" would be plenty clear for everyone to understand, but apparently "shall not" is ambiguous.
it seems so, yeah. But I mean,
But
Well,
understanding the Second Amendment too, that is something most people don't understand. The Second Amendment was never about hunting or self-defense.
no,
It has nothing to do with that.
yeah. Yeah, it's true. And of course, this was written a few years after the Constitution. And for all you morons out there, the Constitution was not written in 1776. Jesus Christ. Um,
Hey, hey, I'm not a moron.
I mean, goddamn, dude, the stuff I hear come out of people's mouths, man. Anyway,
no, it took a long time. The reality is because it was so far in the past, we think that entire revolutionary period was just like bup, 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 and done. No, it was
no.
decades of
Yeah.
work to get
Well,
to that
sure,
point, and even
1812
a
was,
decade to get the Constitution itself
yeah.
to where it
And
was.
and even
And on the
1812
other
was kind of
side,
a continuation of it, right? It was part two.
and the other side of that is it's taken decades to get us back to where we are now, where they've pulled civics classes out of high school, and
Hmm.
yeah, it's a concerted effort.
Hmm.
This is not a coincidence
Yeah.
or something that just
And
happened
I'm
organically.
telling
But
you, if those founders were here today, they would be on the
exactly,
guns already. They
there'd be
would.
thousands of
They would have been
officials.
on it
Oh,
100 years ago.
I've been telling people for a long time we need about 1,000 Sam Adamses, and we'll clean this up real quick.
Yeah.
It had been done already.
The
But
beers, that'll
That's
get
not
yeah,
enough
everybody.
beer. That is not enough beer.
no, not the beer. The one probably
That'll
the
help
most
though.
badass gorilla to ever live. Um, but the reality is, going back to like the numbers and things in the police, the DoD has done these drills, these simulations, all these things for decades. They know full well that it's a not-win situation if enough of the gun owners come together and say, "We're done with you." It's so easy, as we've seen, to shut this country down. It's ridiculous. It's actually
No,
pathetic.
no, they'll just use a nuclear weapon, like that one guy
Yeah,
from California said.
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. They're
like
gonna
the
nuke. They're
yeah,
gonna
right.
nuke America.
No, that's a good
Good
point,
luck.
Slick. The
The only
threats.
reason that things haven't progressed further towards some of the things like the UK are dealing with, Canada is dealing with, is because of the guns. That's the only reason it hasn't happened here yet.
And they're trying. They're trying everything they can to do end arounds of it to get around the guns and everything.
Yeah.
But the reality is, and this is what I'm trying to get to, is when you break down the numbers, depending on the motive, depending on the cause, and just depending on chance, I guess,
Mm.
in between 40 to 60% of the military and police will either defect or functionally defect by just not refusing to do their job.
Yeah,
If a
Yeah.
large scale rebellion happens in America.
I
Well,
think it'll
see,
be
like,
higher than that, dude.
I made a joke there. I made a joke there about
Kind of.
the guy in California, whatever his name was, who said that they're gonna go up against nuclear weapons or whatever he said. But the problem I see here is that there are certain people in the government that actually do have that mindset. the totalitarian mindset of we have
Oh,
weapons of mass destruction,
you think?
and yeah, and that's the reason why I personally think my personal opinion is any able-bodied citizen who is of their salt should have a gun. Who and I'm excluding crazy people and felons and etc.
Right.
But good standing citizens
Yeah.
have a responsibility to this country. Now, other people from outside the country can rave and loon and whatever they want to do about our crazy gun culture. They can fuck right off.
They can. They most certainly can. And you know the funny thing about it is, like, I am the farthest thing away from an anarchist. And I
No,
agree with a
neither am I.
lot of the things that are said by these people, actually, because it's, I mean, just on taxation alone. I mean, my
Mm,
God, sit down and think about it for a minute. Think about what you pay tax on. You don't own your land. I don't care if you think you do, you don't, because it's taxed and therefore it can be taken if the tax is not paid. You don't own your damn car either because they put a special tax on top of that. What do you own? You own the damn shirt on your back. Right? Everything you have is taxed. Your water. Now, with this freaking UN global warming crap, you know the whole point behind it was just so they could tax you to breathe, right? And they won.
yes.
So more tax coming at you, carbon tax, right? Although the states seem to be pushing against that. I'm not. I'm definitely getting carbon taxed. But look at all the other taxes they put on top of you. Everything you do for just to own a car. How many times are you taxed? How many different times are you taxed? Right? You have to get safety checks. You have to get insurance. You have to pay your taxes. Using the roads, you have to pay money for, depending on where you live, et cetera, et cetera. They tax the absolute hell out of you. Just in taxation, things have gotten out of control. I'm telling you, if the founders were here and saw the level of tax we're under, they would be on the guns already. They would
Yes.
be
Well,
on
and
it already.
even if you're up on your taxes and you're doing everything perfect, they can roll in with systems like eminent domain and they could
That's right.
take
Oh
anything
yeah,
from you at any time they want to.
that's right. You have
You
no
do not
freedom.
have any rights.
Yeah,
Well, the
You have an illusion of rights.
you do.
the alternative to that is the militia itself. Now, you have to understand. People have to understand that we've seen this play out in the last 10 years multiple times, but especially the one I'm talking about. If you have enough armed men, they won't roll on you.
Hey, we
It's
saw
just
that
that.
at the Bundy Ranch, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they simply will not do it because it's not worth the body bags. So there's a saying, even in some police forces use this. 10 or more armed men, they just leave them alone. They're not going to go charging at them because
yeah,
somebody's going to be killed for sure. Like, it's
sure.
just that simple. There's no winning that battle. So this is one of the reasons why the government continuously and constantly sabotages militia groups. They get inside, they infiltrate it, they set them up for some crime, and bam, they break them up.
Yep.
Happens all the time.
The
And
Bundys got away with it, though. Thank
that
goodness.
started during the Clinton administration, heavy
Yes.
going
Yeah.
against the militias. So if you're Gen X age, you'll remember how much in the early 90s, especially with Waco and Ruby Ridge and things like that, that was big news. And the feds were going in to these militia groups and basically entrapping people,
Yes.
which
Now,
that is
to
one
be
of the things
fair,
the FBI does well.
there are some yahoos in the militia, though, dude. There are.
Well, of course.
Yeah. So I'm
But
sorry. Go ahead.
those guys are easy to identify. They're usually very overweight.
Mhm.
They've got
Hey, hey,
they've got like all the perfect kit. They've got the tack vest on, and
Right.
those guys are really easy to figure out.
Mhm.
Here's what fascinates me, and the reason why I keep going back to it is the numbers of it. How easy it would be, for real, to break off parts of this country at a time. You don't need as many men as people think you do, or people. You just don't. You could probably get a serious effort started with 1,000 if you
Oh
were
no,
concentrated.
easily, dude. Easily. You don't even.
Yeah,
I mean, the numbers. If something happens that actually kicks this off, it's going to be way bad troublesome, dude. Because there
yes,
are not hundreds, there are tens of thousands of these people, and the thing is,
correct.
the majority of them, man, I agree with them more and more. And understand, I'm trying to let you know that I'm not an anarchist. I am the orderly good boy, right? but I am most certainly identifying with them because I'm an American. I don't care if I haven't lived in the States in 3 decades. That doesn't matter. I'm a pure patriot, baby, and I understand 100% what they feel, right? Now I'm lucky because I don't have that kind of oppression. Get that, right? I live in a semi-democratic socialist society, right? I mean, they're kind of semi-socialist, right? And I am
Yes.
much more free than you are. What the hell is that all about?
Well, it's because we're so atomized in America, and that's one of the things that I say, or by they I mean the deep state, that quite literally is a thing, is so terrified, and why they're constantly trying to demonize gun owners and any gun groups, because they understand that the only reason it hasn't happened yet, this is the truth, is because we're atomized and we're comfortable. Because
Yeah,
Americans are incredibly efficient people, most of them anyway, or at least enough of them are,
that is
and
true
we're
statement. Yeah.
incredibly productive people, probably the most in the world, except for maybe the East Asians. So we have what we need. We take care of what we need. We 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 have plenty of food because we're fat as hell,
Sure.
and we have the ability to take care of ourselves, so we're comfortable and we don't externalize. However, that's all gone now. We're probably going to see a 30% unemployment rate in America this year.
Well, yeah, but I have a feeling that will be fairly temporary, though. But you
Yeah,
will
it
see.
doesn't matter. If you're hungry, it don't matter if it's temporary.
It's true.
Um, if it hits that number, which some places are saying it's probably very likely, this is almost certain to happen this year.
That's mainly in the
Almost,
cities, though, dude.
yeah, that's good. That's where you want it
That's right. That's what I
because
mean. I don't think it's going to be as bad as you think because the
if
countryside
you
people, the ones who
study,
make everything, that's different.
well, yeah, but those are the people who would be on this
That
on this side of the boog boys.
that's right.
Um, if you study how revolutions are successful, usually, especially the most recent one that's important would be the Chinese revolution to take over the communist revolution. How they did that is that's exactly how they did it. They took the heartland, they took the rural areas, and then forced the cities into compliance. That's how you have to do it. And it's not hard. It's when you actually look into this, it's way easier than people think. You can shut down a major city. New York would be the hardest one, New York and DC, because DC is where all the military stuff is, and New York's just massive.
Well,
But
look
the
what's
rest of
happening
them,
now to New York.
yeah, the rest of
Well,
them,
I do
easy.
suspect I do suspect elements of this whole thing going on in this country is a dry run. It's being studied
Well, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
by
take the opportunity
intelligence
when it
in
arises.
depth.
Sure, I get that. But
No, no, not just that. They're I think right now they're testing the public to see how long they can get away with this isolation thing and this because like my state just got locked down and people down here are pretty pissed off. They're the cure in this case is much worse than the disease.
well, Trump was trying to stop it, dude. He's tried. I mean, I give him credit, because he really has tried to be positive and try to get this over with as quick as possible. But he's obviously doesn't have he has no way to get a hold of it. It's
And
unfortunate.
Thundara brought up an interesting point too that we went past is the balkanization of the United States, which is one of the most likely scenarios.
Correct.
Yeah, no,
This
I
It's
think
country
that's
was
almost
possible.
balkanized.
Yeah,
It would split off
yeah,
from the big cities.
yeah,
yep.
yeah.
And let's be honest too. Anyone that thinks the Boogaloo is going to be a fun time is not living in reality. It's going to be a horrific nightmare.
It could be.
Mm.
It could be. But I think the balkanization, which let's be a little more simple with that. Areas breaking off and declaring their own independence and their own statehood is what he means by that. I have a feeling that might not be as violent as you think it would be, though.
Oh, it
That part,
absolutely will be.
It
It will
could
I
be
think
a
be.
nightmare.
It could be.
that part will come after the violence. That'll be the violence will be what makes people realize we can't live together anymore.
Because,
Most
a
smart
lot of
people
people feel we're already in the boogaloo.
most smart people already know this. You even see people like the Weinstein brothers and stuff talking about it, and
Mm.
they're about as left as you can get, or well, not as left, but center left as you can
Well,
get.
they're liberals.
Norm,
They're classical
yeah,
liberals. Yeah.
they're even already talking. He was just on Joe Rogan the other day talking about it. That
Yeah.
it's got to happen. We have to have something has to give here. The,
Yeah.
the
And
government is
yeah.
so unbelievably corrupt They purposefully hinder the American worker. They purposefully hinder the American people at every turn. It's enough. Enough is enough.
Yeah,
It has to end.
yeah,
And if
and
people on both sides of the aisle are saying the same thing, it's gonna happen. It's just a matter of time.
well, and that's an
Well,
interesting
there are
point. That
two.
that's it. Let me make this real quick, just kind of attachment to that. It's a good point because it's not just these Boogaloo boys and these other groups, these survivalist groups, because that's where it's coming out of, right? It's not just them. We get the people on the left in the government who are talking about this too. This isn't
Hmm.
just the right. This both sides are talking about it. That is where it becomes worrisome. Sorry, model. Go ahead.
But we are in the boogaloo right now. You are right. And
Mm,
right now we're in a soft boogaloo. There's two possibilities of this. The perfect spark that you go into a full on actual gunfight. But the soft boogaloo is what they want. That's the old frog in the pot of water.
uh-huh.
Where
Oh, a Pepe.
if they can keep things like this, they won't lose control of the military or the police because all they have to do is let them know that they'll still have their badges, they'll still have their ammunition, and their families will still have food. But they can continue to squeeze the rest of the population and they won't lose control of that. Now, if you did have they come in with the boot on the neck and start like taking guns, yes, then you're going to lose the military and you're going to lose the police because it's too hard and too fast.
Yeah.
But we are absolutely something is playing out here right now, and everybody needs to understand that this is probably the closest we've been to a situation where things could fire off. Now they can handle scenarios. Say you have one city where there's a big riot because they have enough resources to marshal and control that. But if something happens where, with social media, where things start popping off in 6 cities, 12 cities, things are going to go very quick.
Yeah.
And that is going to be a bad situation.
Yeah.
And if you're living in a big city right now, you should be talking to relatives and friends that are not in a city and just kind of dropping some hints about a contingency plan,
Yeah.
because
A place to
you
stay.
got
Yeah.
72 hours if a city goes tits up.
Yeah, no,
That's all you got.
that's a good point. Yeah, that's a very good point. And do keep in mind another interesting fact. There is more social violence going on right now than the entirety of the 60s.
Hmm.
You get that, right? The big 60s, the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King and all that kind of stuff. There's more violence in the past few years and more public marches and violence from Black Lives Matter, Antifa, et cetera, than we have seen in the entire 60s. That is a credible statement, but it's true.
There's another thing you have to take into account is the people on the left that run, like, California, or at least big parts of California, and all these really super crazy liberal sanctuary cities and all that. They absolutely despise, with a burning hot passion, right wingers. If they had their way, they'd kill them. That's
It
just,
seems
they've
so.
said it. They
It
don't even
seems
make
so.
that a secret.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
So
if you
why
don't
can't
if you
you
don't
sit?
think they would drag you out of your house in the middle of the night and make you disappear, you are not living in reality and you've not followed history, because
Correct.
that's exactly what the Bolsheviks have done historically. And
Why
they
do we persist on pretending we still have a country? We don't have a nation anymore. We have a country legally, but we don't have a nation. It's gone. It's over. The divide is too great. We are not united. The only thing uniting us is law.
Mhm.
This decade, more and more people are gonna realize that, and it's over. The U.S. is done. I really don't see the U.S. making it to 2040. I don't see it happening
He's a
unless
man
something
who
crazy happens and we just all kumbaya. But even in this, we're not kumbaya. And this is the biggest event since 9/11 that's happening in this country right now. And
yeah.
there was a little bit at first, but it's gone.
Well,
There's no kumbaya left.
here's a man right here who loved America,
Correct.
right? And it's just insane to me that things have gotten to this point because it sounds like a stupid conversation to be having. Hey, you bunch of lunatics, a bunch of right wingers. Are we? I'm certainly not. I'm a pretty staunch libertarian, dude. I mean, pretty straight up libertarian. I mean, so, and I'm thinking this. So I don't know what to tell you, man. It's a pretty crazy thing, but let me come over to the chat and see if they have anything to say here. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, they have a lot to say. Okay, here we go. Let me catch up then. Let's see. Alice in Wonderland. God, no, Chester. Okay, thank you. Right Rabbit going down the rabbit hole. Oh, I get it. Okay. Robert Earl Stevens says going down the rabbit hole to see where the truth leads. Yes, I get it. It was a Matrix reference. I get it. Oh no, Alice in Wonderland. Sorry. Chester, please, for the record, Joe is not doing heroin. Okay. 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 I was a joke. The Q theory is that the celebs have it because it contracted through tainted adrenochrome. Oh, okay. That seems an extremely long step to take to get to something that could be explained a
Yeah,
lot easier.
How about Occam's razor? Get some celebrities to say they've all got it, and the people get a little more worried that
Or
they could
yeah,
get it as well.
maybe that could be part of it too. Let's see. Joshua says, "Hey, you're back in the sub box." Well, for today, until they see the heading of my my thing here, and then I'll be banned for 2 months. I'm sure. They don't like the Boogaloo at all. Let's see. You're getting into Initial D, dude. I love Initial D. What are you talking about? Oh, that's Tenacious D. Sorry. Ray Thula says that was kind of funny. A half a chuckle, Thundero. Half a chuckle. Fine, fine. All right,
Uh,
fine. Leave me hanging then. Leave me hanging. Ray Thiel says, I was pleased that Trump specified that gun, ammo, and hunting stores were to be considered essential business. That's right. Of course it is. But of course, here in Cali, a federal judge okayed local government closing these stores. Of course they did. They keep doing the exact opposite the man says. That's why in January he came out and obviously was skeptical at the beginning, then looked into it because of Tucker Carlson. Everyone praised Tucker Carlson. And he looked into it and said, oh, this is a problem, and he shut it down. And of course, because he did that, they all had to do the opposite. And now look where they are. The biggie gee glue, Devilish says. Hey all, Eric Hawkins. Oh, Kat. Hi, Kat. She's Canadian, but we forgive her for that. Model insults, please, Sargon on stream for me. Okay, go ahead. Insult him.
I don't know anything about Sargon. I've never listened to Sargon. I've never been interested in him, so that could be an insult on its own. I just don't care about Sargon.
Well, I've watched him for years. I get a kick out of him. I think he's funny. And in general, he's not wrong. He's not any different than we are. He's just a dude.
What's the beef with Sargon?
I don't know. It's
He's a
probably
sweet man from southern England.
yeah.
He's just trying to make his way. You people need to calm down.
Cat doesn't like him. She doesn't like him. Mr. Crank is
I,
watching us from Norway.
I,
Okay.
he's insufferable.
He's what?
Cat owes me a movie.
Insufferable.
I did
He
meet
can be,
Sargon, by the
yeah,
way.
sure, but he's funny. I get a kick out of him. And he's fighting a different fight anyway. He's fighting the British fight, dude, not the American one. They are forgetting all about us, babes. We're not forgetting. I love you guys. Devilish Boredom says, "Oh, we're not supposed to do those things. Whoops! I've been doing this all wrong." Yeah, right. The big rainbow Lou. Yeah, no, I know, Rodwell. Joe says, "Not voting our way out. Spoken like a true anarcho-capitalist."
Well, what I am is I'm a constitutional Republican, so I am fringe right. There's no question about it. I consider myself a leave me aloneist, and that's something that neither party wants to do.
Mm.
So I am definitely I would be in the sights or in the scope of Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah, but see, I would consider myself a Republican as far as the Republic, and I'm also a constitutionalist. So does that make me a constitutional Republic?
You're a constitutional Republic. I mean, it's the document is there.
Yeah, well, that
It
I'm very
lines.
pro-Constitution. Yeah.
Yeah. It tells the government what they can do, unfortunately, in 1913 they figured out they can even start just throwing things in that document as well. So,
Joe
Which is
is
why we need an unamendable version of it.
well. It shouldn't.
yeah,
It shouldn't be messing with it anyway. Joe says Chester's never encountered Philly cops. Dude, I lived in New York. Please. Joe says never saw Serpico. Okay. Dave says Chester and Co. Have you ever heard of the Oath Keepers? I do believe so, but I don't know anything to speak about them. Go ahead.
It's military and law enforcement that have pledged an oath to uphold the Constitution regardless of orders. That's the TLDR.
That's awesome. That's a good thing. I like that.
It's
Uh,
absolutely a good thing.
all right. Let's see. Roger
And
says,
more police and military need to join that organization. That organization should be have money flowing out of the coffers, and they should be a huge power lobby in Washington, but they're not.
Well, the reality is they shouldn't even exist. Every single person who works for the government takes that oath already. The fact that they feel
right,
that they have to
right,
make a special
right.
secondary oath just shows you how little the people who take it mean it.
Now, here's the interesting thing coming from the land of bent cows. Joe says they're banning seed sales in Vermont at Walmart as not essential. Seeds. Yeah, dude, right? We're seeing a lot of craziness, man. And we're seeing the cops in some places overstepping their bounds, dude, especially in the UK. The UK's got a real problem, dude. They had their own kind of modern Patriot Act they passed to try to help with this current situation, and the cops immediately started taking advantage of it. Immediately. But then again, keep in mind the UK, the police are the ones that for a decade knew that a bunch of Pakistanis were raping white girls and did shit about it. So they can all go straight to hell. Yeah? You bastards.
Yes.
Well, the system in the UK, the police and the government have completely turned their back on the citizens of that country.
They have.
That is criminal, and unfortunately, those folks, all they have left now is pitchfork and rope if they're lucky. They have no other way to go against this.
It's true. If they get a bazooka, I want bazookas. Dude, Rodwell, I'm on it. A bazooka would be fun, man. I never shot a bazooka, but I shot a Laws once. Don't tell anybody. I don't think I'm ready for a boogaloo. I don't think anybody is, dude. I think that's the point. That's why I'm happy to be talking about it. And the thing is this a TFT episode or not? Hmm. Thank God for James Madison. Damn right, dude. And this is another thing. I'm always happy to read in our chat. You guys are pretty well informed individuals, and I just don't understand why more Americans don't, talk about, read about, and praise the founders. I mean, it was such a unique moment in history, guys. Those group
Oh,
of people gave away freedom. They gave away
they were just
power.
slave owners, Chester. They were awful, horrible men. They were misogynists and
Yeah, I get your sarcasm, but you know what I mean, dude. That was a rare moment that people in power gave their power away for the betterment of people of the community. That is rare, dude. That is super rare, right? And Curious says, "Damn it, I'm late." Let's see here. If you drive a car, I'll tax the street. If you try to sit, I'll tax your seat. If you get too cold, I'll tax the heat. If you take a walk, I'll tax your feet. Damn right, Joe. Raythulu, it's only taken a dozen men with hunting rifles to bring the whole country to a halt in an hour. Spread out around the heartland, shooting power transformers, and the whole damn grid will fall. That is a fair point, Raythulu. And once again, back to Bundy Ranch. I mean, what a wonderful moment that was, them standing up against a tyrannical government, because that's what was going on. If you have any doubts about that, go back and do a little research on what happened with Bundy Ranch. That was a wonderful moment for me. I was very happy to see it happen. Kat says,
I actually had a friend of mine was actually there for pretty much the whole thing.
Bundy Ranch is not over though. It's an ongoing thing that is still in process.
True, but they
still
are
trying
free.
to drag those people into court.
Yeah, but they are
The
free.
good news is
So
Trump pardoned
he did.
that Bundy's is. So their part of it's done, but there are still people who are part of it that are the government's still trying to get, even what is it, 6 years, 7 years later, because our government is just pure evil.
Well, there's certain parts of it that I think are carbon tax. A tired face from Cat. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Thunder.
I said the whole thing's got to go. It's corrupt to the core.
Well,
I welcome globalization. I think it needs to happen if there's going to be any liberty on this continent.
Oh my goodness.
Now, one thing I think we should talk about though, guys, because I know we're burning through our time here. We should actually talk about prepping. What should people actually do?
Yeah, no, I think it's a fair point. Let me just finish up the chat real quick, and we'll get into that. Let me bring it back up, that thing I put up there. Chester should change the name of the show to Fed Posting. Oh, I don't know what that means, but okay. Slap in the head. All right. Let's see. Some of the founders would. The others would love tax. Oh, Hamilton. Cough Hamilton. Okay, I get it. What was that joke you made? Anyway, I just lost a whole bunch of chat. Anyway, it jumped. In your guys' expert opinions, what if anything will happen to the housing market over the next 2 years? I have a feeling the housing market will probably go up. To be fair, this is a big test, and I believe they're pleased with the results so far. Maybe, maybe. Let's see here, McCrank. You're lucky you're not living right next to the country of the Boogaloo. McCrank is in Norway. You should feel no sympathy. You should feel nothing but sympathy for him, because he is in the heartland of idiocy. So you know. Sorry, McCrank, I love you, man. But Scandinavia's lost its goddamn mind. The big cities would look like Gotham and yeah, right. Dilla says, "Oh, please, this is way bigger bigger nationwide than 9/11 ever was." That is a truthful statement, John. Evan Hotep, and look at all the diverse people who agree with the craziness that's going on. Because these people, they're not one thing or another. This is not an alt-right channel that we have liberals and Democrats, and but we even have some progressives amongst us, right?
Oh
Eh,
God,
well, we do
Where?
though. I'm just saying that
Point them
the
out.
uh, Preston, he's most certainly a progressive. Let's see. The only thing that will save this country is the removal of Tim Pool's beanie. Initial D comes before tenacious D. Fair enough, McCraig. Fair enough. Let's see. These are just little offhand comments. Okay, all laws are supposed to be tested by the Constitution. If they violate the Constitution, they should never be allowed to pass. That's right. Exactly. Yeah. Uh-huh. McCraig, Cat is just mad at anyone who beefs with her boy Medicor. I like Medicor. He's fun. The Constitution, now that's an irreverent bastard right there. The Constitution was a counter-revolutionary. I guess it was. Uh, Sweetie Scott Squad for life. Sweet. I didn't know Cat liked Metacore. I like Metacore too. The founders aren't a monolithic group, ideologically speaking. No, this is not true. It is true in some ways, but in other ways it's not. They came together unified in one action. The ones who didn't agree ended up on the British side, right? The ones who actually became our founders are the ones who stood against the tyranny of Britain. So in a way, they were unified. Now I understand when we get down to nuance, that's not true, but I agree and disagree, Joe. Federalists versus anti-federalists, screw that. Dave says if there's a new way, I'll be the first in line, but it better work this time. Uh-oh, Claudio's in the room. I have no idea what you were talking about because I just got here. But always be prepared. We are not used to disasters over here, no tomatoes, tomatoes. Oh no, tornadoes, earthquakes, and people are lost right now with the Voldemort. It's true, dude. But this is an alt-right channel, dude. You're from Argentina, though, Claudio. I mean, or are you from Brazil? Maybe he's from Brazil. I think is it,
Same
okay.
difference.
Same difference. No, it's not actually. It's completely radically different. Anyway, I'm
totally
caught up.
aware.
I'm when Nori collapses, us Samis will devolve to our true forms. Are you Samis? That's interesting, McCrank. Anyway, let's get back to it here. On the screen right now, as I've had for a little while, I have the bug out bag. Now, the thing with this conversation today is prepping for the Boogaloo, right? Now, there are a lot of people online you can find that talk about this, and they're coming out of the survivalists, the preppers, and stuff. Of course, it's just an evolution in a way. But there are some who are clearly people you do not want to get in the way of, and there's other ones that are just a kind of a joke. I mean, I'd roll through a dozen of them in a heartbeat, right? But I feel there are far more that aren't a joke than those are a joke. However, and that's a good thing. But this is the bug out bag they have here. They're saying you need to have at least a gallon of water per person per day. Keep cash, keep some kind of medical stuff, a tent, cameras, some kind of lighting function, a weapon, weather appropriate to the environment. MREs, especially since most of you spend all day inside, you should have a jacket, flashlight, and of course, and don't forget your pets. They also mention a passport. Now, What do you guys think about this just very standard bug out bag? And more importantly, is this something that we should really have?
Lose the passport, lose the cash, it won't be worth anything. Uh, you need a fire source. You need, to have 3 days of food for 72 hours. You don't need a gallon of water per day. Nobody drinks a gallon of water
I
unless you're exerting yourself.
well, then that's kind of the point, I think. But here's the thing, though. Do you think you should have a bug out bag prepared?
You should have
Well,
something. I don't know if it
where are
has
you
to
going to
be
bug out
specifically
to?
that.
To be honest, first of all, are you going to bug in? Or are you going to bug out? That's a big decision.
Well, isn't that part of it too? It's about preparing yourself for problems, for difficult
Depends on
times.
where you live. I mean, where I live, I can easily bug out to the wilderness 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Either direction. I mean, it'll take maybe 30 minutes in one direction, but I'm right next to the mountains.
I got a
And
What
valley.
happens when 350 million people bug out? What happens to the
well,
wilderness, these remote
my
areas?
350 million, I've talked about this before. My state will lock down. We have choke points in the state, and we've done it before.
Yeah, we're
It was
seeing it right now.
120 years.
We're seeing it
But
right
I mean,
now. Yeah,
there are places where we can stop inflow and outflow of this state real easily. Um, and it's just how you do it. And now, if they come in with like Air Force and stuff, well, that's different. But they're going to want to be securing much bigger hubs in Salt Lake and even the surrounding of Salt Lake. Now, what happens in other places? I feel bad for people that I love that live in other places, but this is my home, and this is where I'll defend.
mm,
If you're in a city, you should be planning to bug out, and you need to probably have more than 72 hours.
Well, I have a truck and I have a lot of storage.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is what it is. But again, like I've talked about how it is here in this state, there is some regimentation done by the church already. We organize in quorums for the men, and that translates over pretty easily to another type of organization,
sure.
and it would. I mean, not everybody here is Mormon. I'm going to see that, but most people, when they say the majority of people going, let's hunker down, let's take care of people, let's do that, and it would happen. And there are people going to run for the hills, literally the hills that are like right next to us, and they're going to people run for the desert because there are people who can live out there. Um, you know, but we live in a fairly defensible location, as opposed to say, you know, New York.
Yeah.
New York could be defensible if they just want to cut off all the bridges and tunnels. But then you got so many people there, it's going to be a freaking madhouse. So,
Thundero,
What?
we're talking about bug out bags.
Oh yeah, I already said no. I don't think you need one. You should have something. You should have something prepared for emergency situation if you need to get. Everybody, in my opinion, everybody who can should have either, if not a firearm, some kind of weapon that you can rely on that's sturdy, that can be used multiple times.
I got
right.
a bow.
I,
I got a
If
I've
wakizashi.
The
I've got a
reality
bow,
is,
I've got a gun, I've got a bug out bag, but I am anchored right here because of
for most of
family.
like the East
That's the way it is.
Coast,
I'm not going anywhere. I'm really
for
not going to go anywhere.
can I finish my sentence, please? For
Wait, go
most of
ahead.
the East Coast, and most of like the Midwest and places like that, there's nowhere to bug out to. You could go to the country, I guess, but there's so many towns in between here and everywhere. Like where I'm at in Ohio, every 30 miles there's a town with 30,000 people or something like that in it, or around that area. So there's really nowhere to get to. So what you're going to see mostly in places like the Midwest, around the Great Lakes and stuff, there's going to be large hot pockets of
Ooh,
chaos,
pizza
and
pepperoni.
and those places you'll have people who quite literally form into raiding groups and go and raid other areas. And that'll just, depending on how long this lasts for, that'll just be what happens. But I think a lot of places like my area will calm down relatively soon, and they'll just have to be forced to pick a side. And once you've picked a side one way or the other, if you pick the side that has, the quote unquote rebels in it, well, a lot of the chaos is going to calm down. things are going to go into quarantine mode if you're on like the other side of it, because they won't have the ability. They won't be the ones trying to cause chaos, most likely. The ones that are going to be trying to cause chaos are going to continuously cause chaos, so things will never be calm.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you think it'll be that partisan? Like, you know, on
I think
the
it'll be
Russian and
functionarily that partisan. It won't
so.
be as like there won't be like one massive like Civil War style fact. One
Well, I'm just talking
faction
about like
against
the
the other.
crazy factionization that went on, like in the Ukraine in the Second World War, where there were multiple factions that were fighting each
Yes.
other constantly.
Oh, I
Well,
absolutely
because
think there will be.
Yeah, that's
Because
yeah,
true.
there will be.
Yeah,
to
but
be
They'll
honest
be
about
they'll be
the
regional.
nature,
can
to
I
be honest
can
about
I
the
interject?
nature of men
Sure,
is that
that's
it's going to be
true.
a power play.
Well, maybe not soy men, but okay. Let me interject something real quick, though. Uh, at the so-called fall of Rome, it was hardly any fighting at all because the
Mhm.
Romans had become so soft, and that is uncomparable to the level of softness of today. Understand that. Even the Romans, at their height of hedonism, did not have the luxury and soft life that we have today. I have a feeling when you take all these military and all these survivalists and people who train daily, weekly, just as simply their hobby, I don't think there's going to be that long a fight at all, dude.
I think it's 2 to
Correct.
3 years.
I don't even
I
think
don't
it's
think I
months,
don't even think
dude.
it'll be. I don't even think it'll be 6 months. Depending on how big the rebel force, whatever you want to call it, is, and how much chaos they can create, which is a lot if there's enough of them, the government will have no choice but to capitulate to their demands. Even if it's just a regional government, would have to do it because there's no other option, right? I mean, everybody in our government, they're not gods, they're not immortals, they're not superhumans. They have addresses, they have family members. If it kicks off, people are going to go for them. Period. Like that's what happens.
That's
Every
true,
almost
but
most of the people who signed the Declaration of Independence died during the Revolutionary War.
yeah,
That's what
and
happened.
that's true. But the reality is that after that is taken care of, then you're going to have the infighting and the power struggle that goes on
Oh,
because
Yeah, I
people
don't think it will.
will
interesting.
push to establish new government. They absolutely will, and you're
Nah,
fooling yourself if you don't believe that.
I don't think. I think you're fooling yourself hard here. Here's what'll happen. We've already seen this happen. It's happened in America even. People will pick where they're from, and that'll be the governments. The states won't automatically break up. Now, some of them will, but largely you'll have regional government. Like where I live, you could easily carve this out as an entire area, really, around Lake Erie and between and under Lake Michigan and stuff. And we would easily, I think, I know, we would easily just come together and be like, okay, this is what we would establish. The way our government's set up and the way that it's the power's distributed is designed to help a revolution, actually, because it's so localized. Besides the federal government, you have your state government, then you have your county government, then you have your city government, then you might have a municipality, then you could even have just a simple township. It keeps going down in a zoning. It keeps going down and down and down with a chain of command where a sheriff in a county will have more power than anybody in that county. He's basically a king in some ways. So I think you'll see a lot of people will lean into their areas.
The
The places that
sheriff
won't do that
of
are the
Nottingham.
multicultural, crazy cities like San Francisco and New York that don't have an identity that strong. Most of the country does. Even in my city, we're the same. We're the same people. We look out for each other. So I think what you'll have is, like I said, you'll have a lot of raiding, and you'll have a bunch of cities get shut down by people. They'll be taking out trucks. They'll be taking out roads. They'll be taking out power lines. Might even go after water plants. But I think once the people who are behind that either get what they want or get killed, that'll stop very quickly. And we've seen peaceful balkanization happens all the time. It's happened multiple times in the last 100 years, where they just
Can
break off from each other, and the
Thundero,
people have an identity of that area, and they just go their separate ways.
Thundero, can I
Mhm.
have her in my bug out bag?
Yes, if you
Thank
could,
you.
that's a big bag though. I don't know
Yeah,
if that's gonna.
man, I'm a big boy. I'm a big boy.
She's just going to drink all the water and eat all the provisions.
I
Right.
That's
think the
okay. I
places where
have
you'll
other
see
things
the
for
most,
her to drink, model.
I think the places where you'll see the most sustained violence are the places that are very ethnically diverse, very ethnically diverse. Like a lot of the southern area where there's a whole lot of Mexicans who live down there, but there's a bunch of white people living there too, who just fundamentally disagree, largely by and large, when you look at the statistics on how a government should function. Um, that's where you'll see a lot of fighting over that kind of stuff. But I would venture to guess most Michigan people would be fine with keeping Michigan, Michigan. Most Ohio people are going to be fine with keeping Ohio, Ohio, stuff like that. And that'll happen all throughout the country. And then you'll have pockets of areas where there's a lot of violence and people fighting over resources and territory, but that'll sort itself out. It always does. Might take a while. But I really don't think the mass scale of it will go longer than 6 months if the rebels know what they're doing and if they actually do the right things. If they're just out there causing violence for violence sake, well, then it could last forever. But if they're actually out there doing, strategic violence, hitting targets that matter, that cause more chaos in the population, that forces the government to be willing to concede to them, then it won't take very long.
That's interesting. The
I'll tell you why I think it absolutely will.
okay.
And because if things were to devolve, the government is not going to give up that easy. First of all, they're going to invite foreign powers to get involved. And also foreign countries will get involved regardless.
This is a proper search.
They absolutely will get involved.
No, they won't. Here's how I know they won't. The DoD has done these simulations.
That's my kind of survivor right there.
I'm
saying.
Not bad.
I'm
The DoD
doing the
has done
proper
these
research. Thank you very much.
In only about 20% of the cases will a
maybe.
foreign government even attempt to invade. And here's why.
Ho.
They'll all be arguing with each other over who should do it. Now you could say, well, China will do it. China really can't do it. It would take them too long, take too much resources to get across the Pacific to matter. And if they did that, wherever they hit is going to be a madhouse. There's going to be no way for them to gain ground because now all of these fighting groups will just turn on them and kick them out. We've seen this happen in Syria, right? ISIS came into Syria, and the two factions of civil war, both Assad and the people that were rebelling against him, turned on ISIS, and then obviously we helped them get rid of ISIS.
I want to change my bug out, babe, please.
So what happens is if that happens, this war, if the Boogaloo happens, it's not going to be a naval battle. So largely, our naval forces are going to stay intact, and they're going to go into blockade mode where they try and make sure that doesn't happen. They don't allow them to get across the sea to cause any more trouble because the government's not going to want that. Obviously, if they're dealing with rebels here, the last thing they want is to deal with a hostile nation. So they're going to do everything in their power to make sure that doesn't happen. Now, that doesn't mean after the government falls, somebody might not try it. They might. But the same problem is going to happen with Japan. The same problem is going to happen with anybody who tries to invade America. We have more guns than them. We have more bullets than them. Good luck.
Oh, Japan isn't doing anything. I'm safe as a bug in a rug here, brother.
Yeah. Well, the Japanese Navy, you have to also consider that our ally, Japan, their Navy is one of the most powerful in the world. China's barely even competes with it, and Japan doesn't even use it, except for to do patrol. So if the American Navy decides it can't, guard that part of the Pacific, the Japanese will step up and they'll be more aggressive. That's just what will happen.
Well, that's why the Chinese are going economic, and they're taking a lot of liberties right now, trying to get ahead of America. Because understand, they're hoping that because of the current emergency, that they will be able to take the economic forefront and be the leader of the world. That's what China's doing right now. Don't misunderstand it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they might be for a minute, but not for long. I think China's done. I don't think you're going to see. I don't know I don't want to see the politician who has the balls to be like, "Nah, we got to keep making everything in China."
Oh, Bernie Sanders,
I don't want to be that guy.
Bernie freaking Sanders. All right.
Bernie Sanders is the most incompetent politician in American history. He can't even beat a senile old man, and he couldn't beat the most hated woman in the country.
Yeah, but he holds 30% of the Democratic vote, dude.
Yeah, because that's all the third world socialists they imported. That's why he keeps getting that vote. These idiots keep bringing these people in because they vote left. No, stupid. They vote communist. That's what they vote. That's what you're going to get if you don't stop. But there's a good video. It's by a friend. He's a Facebook friend of mine. He's got over 1.5 million views. By his channel is called John Mark, and it's basically just about this Civil War II in America, what happens. And he talked to one of the people who ran these simulations, and he showed what's most likely to happen. Now, they could call in UN troops and stuff. The problem is there isn't any. Who are they going to call in? They going to call in the Russians? They going to call in the Chinese? I
Well,
don't think so.
you do realize there was a point back under Obama where they were trying to appoint the Russian detachments of soldiers as UN to
Yes.
bring them into America. And there was a lot of that movement going on under Obama because they felt that their own military wouldn't do what they're told, so they were bringing in Russians. That's not a joke. I'm not making that
Right.
up. Obama did that,
There's just
dude.
as long as Putin's in power, that ain't going to happen. Russia's had a long-standing policy. Any insurrection in America, they're going to support the rebels. America knows it. It's not a secret. They've openly talked about it. It's just not going to happen. Now, he might be doing that just to undermine so he can come and take more, come through Alaska or something, but I don't think he has any desire to do that. I think he wants to localize and rebuild the Soviet empire under him as much as possible. That's what I genuinely believe he wants to do.
Well, maybe. I don't know if you got to rebuild the Soviets, but he wants a dictatorship, possibly. Yeah.
Oh, he wants that size. He wants the whole regions, not the actual union.
While yeah, they're making comparisons to Soviet Union here on the big igloo boys, reporting anti-Soviet neighbors for extra food, reporting anti-quarantine neighbors for extra good boy points. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah.
No, I do think this is an inevitability, unfortunately, or at least if people actually want their government back and want to be able to have a real say again, they need to make it seem like such an inevitability that somebody in the government blinks. And once that happens, it's over. It's really crazy to me that the American people are this powerful when it comes to militarily. Most powerful military in the world is the American populace. Most well armed, most well trained, and yet we just allow this stuff to keep happening. I don't. It's just it's an amazing case study in sedation.
Mm.
Well, the people that are actually controlling this country don't care about America. They're not invested in America. They have property all over the world. You have organizations like the Federal Reserve, which is not federal, the IRS, which is not a government body, it's a private collection service whose biggest client happens to be the government. Those are the people that are actually running the show, and they do not care about America. They don't care about Americans. And that's an important thing to understand when you're talking about other governments getting involved. They would have no, all they care about is the land and the resources. They do not care what happens with America. To them, America is a failed experiment that has gone on for too long.
That's true. That is true. I love this little meme here. The boys are spending their entire $1,200 stimulus check on Ops Core helmets. Sweet.
Now, for prepping though, I think if you can legally own a firearm and you do not own a firearm, that should be your number one priority above anything else.
Indeed, I agree.
That would.
Firearm, you need to learn how to take care of it. You need to learn how to obviously shoot it, but that shouldn't even need to be said. You need to know how to clean it, how to repair it, how to maintain it, how to load it. If it's got magazines, how to maintain those. Not that you need to. Some people are like, we got to stockpile we got to stockpile mags and ammo. If this happens, you don't. You're gonna find plenty of it. Trust me. But you need to have some. Be ready.
Let me suggest, if you don't know anything about guns, and comes down to really a
Stockpile
short
that
time
right
thing.
there. It's like-
If you don't have guns, you need to get a very simple gun, as simple as you possibly can use. Usually a wheel gun or a revolver, or just a rifle that shoots one bullet at a time. Something simple. If you don't know what you're doing, you might just end up hurting yourself or other people's without. You don't want to jump in and use something that you don't know what you're doing. Just a warning. So if you want to get started now. It's still not we're not to the point where you can't go out and buy a gun, at least not where I am. I'm sure most of the country is like that. You can go get one and get something cheap and efficient and learn how to use it. Because if you need to use it in a pinch, you want to be fumbling around with it.
Hold on a
Now,
second.
a lot
Hold
of
on, hold on,
places
hold on,
do,
hold on.
even right now,
Wait,
a lot of
wait.
shops are on status where they're having to order. So if you want one, go start the process because
Yeah.
you might have to wait a couple of weeks for it to come.
True. But let me look at this picture that's on this Igloo Boys site. Is freaking Cuomo have nipple rings, dude?
It's probably a ballistic vest, is my guess.
You're right. You're right. Oh, damn it! I like the nipple ring thing better. That'd be better.
Spread that though. That's funnier.
It is funnier. Yeah,
Make him address it, spread it so much. He's like, no, I don't have nipple rings, guys.
that'd be awesome.
You never know what those Cuomo boys are up to.
Nah, the Cuomos are just absolute hacks, dude.
There's probably nipple rings underneath the bulletproof vest.
There might be. There might be. Yeah. I'm just. You guys keep talking. I'm just kind of showing this website. This Facebook site. Sorry. And I find it really interesting. This one right here, I thought was a bit much. The government tells us we must wear masks. Let's comply. That's an interesting meme, dude. Anyway, go ahead. I'm just kind of showing what these guys think. They're memery.
Hmm.
I'll show you guys one thing that you should get. And this is something I've used over and over and over again. It's such a simple little thing, but it's a crank radio with a light, solar powered. It has a USB charger on it. It has all the weather channels programmed in, and then it's a regular radio. I use this thing
We can't
every
see it, by the
hurricane
way.
season. Is it not in the camera?
There you go.
Oh,
That's
there you
there.
go.
It's there.
Yeah, but this thing is fantastic. I use it every year during the hurricane season when we get our power knocked out. But one of the best things for your morale is to have some background noise and some light. It makes you feel so much better. That's like the third one of those I've owned because I've worn them out. But we actually do have situations here with hurricanes where the power is out for days at a time.
Sure. Sure.
And
Well,
I swear by that.
Well, I actually am not in the situation you guys are in. And I want us to switch the next ending part here. I want to switch the conversation slightly, but I'm not in the same situation the West is in. But here in Japan, of course, we have earthquakes. So I do have an earthquake bag. I have two actually, and it has all kind of things in there you would need in case you're outside of your house for several days. So I actually keep a bug out bag, kinda. It's just not for. It's just not doesn't have weapons in it. It's just for earthquakes. But I would like to switch the conversation a little bit to kind of ending up the conversation of, um, you know, do we really, really think that this is an actual possibility that's going to happen within the next year or two, or is this just I don't want to use the word wishful thinking, but or is this just panic?
It won't happen in the summer. It'll happen in the winter. They will do everything they can to keep it from happening when the weather is nice.
Yeah, but do you think who? Okay, then let me ask the question a little differently. First shots, where and from who?
More than likely in the big cities, and it won't be people that are really aligned. And it all depends on if there's a continuity of services. If the TV stays on, the internet stays on, and the power stays on, this likely isn't going to kick off. It would be a loss of services that caused food shortages or just a kind of
Oh, you
just
mean
a
like a
malaise.
pandemic? Huh.
Well, but that they can. This isn't what they're saying it is.
It
It's a real disease, but it's not. There's no way that it rises to the level of what we're seeing as far as completely shutting down the economy, locking states down.
But it is a forced lockdown. People are out of work because they've forced out of work, not because
Yes, absolutely.
yeah, it's third area. Go ahead.
If I was a betting man, and there are, believe it or not, there are people out there who take this very, very, very seriously. They don't think it's a joke. They don't think it's
Oh, yeah.
fun to talk about.
Hmm.
But it's a very serious topic that they want to prepare for, and that they actually want to, in some cases, instigate. These people have studied this ridiculously to the point they know the actual power grid, where to hit the power grid, the best places in every state.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It's all public information for some reason, but it is.
Yeah. Isn't that concerning though?
Yes. My point is, these people, and I've seen some of them around, and they will tell you there's a few different places that are the best places for it to start. One is Virginia, and Virginia, just because it's so close to DC, you can get to it, and there's a lot of people and a lot of hills and things. Just a great place to start. Plus, it's kind of a hotbed right now. The other place is around where I'm at, right here in the center of the Midwest, because so much travel goes through here. If you and we have the fresh water, of course, with the lakes. So you shut that, and a lot of farmland. You shut that down, lock that down, control that, and that causes severe problems for the rest of the country very quickly. The other place is the Northwest, which is also, funnily enough, a hot spot right now. Washington, especially that area, because really the only part of Washington that's super duper crazy lefty is the city. Everywhere else is, conservative America, just like anywhere else. And those are probably the ones that make the most sense. It could start in one of the huge cities, metropolis areas, but like Model said, I think he's right. It would just be chaos. It wouldn't be any political reason or narrative or a group trying to force some sort of political change. It would be just, a mass riot that turns.
Yeah, we're already seeing it down in like Atlanta in the perimeter where there's already fights and riots going on at Walmart and stuff. It's already happening.
Yeah.
It's being downplayed, but the videos are out and people hey, everybody's got a video camera on them at all times now with smartphones. So,
but I do think that you're going to see, and they already exist, by the way, political factions, political groups who will be more than willing to use that to mobilize enough people, enough men, to create enough discord, to create political change that they want. It really doesn't take as many as people think, especially if it's organized or at least not stupid. It's scary how fragile our system is. I think Americans kind of see that now. This just-in-time supply chain nonsense
That
is
was a
insanity.
mistake. Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
mistake.
It should never, especially for non-perishables. Like, why? There's no reason to do it that way. So I think there's a realization, which this as sad as it is that people are sick, and like I said, my wife works in a COVID ICU, so I'm seeing it every day. I'm living with it. This has been a huge wake-up call for huge swaths of the American population who got comfortable. We got way too comfortable. We got way too trusting of our quote-unquote leaders. And as Model said, these people do not care about America. They hate Americans, most of them. These corporate CEOs
true.
and stuff, big guys, when they start talking about Americans, they talk about them like they're like they're numbers. It's that, right? They're a nuisance. They want America, the spirit of America, that idea of liberty, dead, gone. They don't want it to exist because they want total control. It's not good for profits.
Oh no, they want America just to be eaters. They want it to be consumers only. That's all they care about. It's just
they turned America into a labor farm, is what they did.
Well, a service farm, I would say.
Yeah, that's probably a better descriptor. But they almost completely succeeded in that, and I genuinely think it's done. I think there's too many people in this country who, and I hate to use this word because it's so cliche now, who are awake to what's going on. They get it now. We're being screwed. We're being lied to. We're being tricked.
But there's also a lot of idiots, Sundaro.
Idiots don't matter. That's why they're idiots. The reality is, look how few people it took to get the revolution started the first time. Less than 3%. Less than 3% got it going. It snowballed. And as Mark Twain said, it's real easy to, mock a patriot at the beginning. I'm paraphrasing. But by the time that their cause is pretty much assured victory, everybody becomes a patriot. Real quick. Everybody's on board. And that's what'll happen. If political factions who want what I think pretty much most of us here want, a smaller government, leave us the hell alone, just have enough, there's nothing that can stop them. The only reason our complacency is a mercy. That's truth. That's reality. If we said enough, that's it. There's nothing they can do besides maybe unleash chemical weapons or something, go crazy and do some crazy tyrannical shit. But that's just going to turn everybody else against them. So good luck. Have fun with that.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's going to be a terrible thing if it happens, but I do think that it's the only way to change things. It's the only thing that's left. Our systems have been co-opted. The court systems have been put out of reach of the average person to use through cost and through backhand handshakes with even judges and lawyers. The systems have been ruined. Voting is an illusion of choice. I always say that American politics is nothing but WWE wrestling, and Vince McMahon is going to make his money regardless.
Yeah.
So that if you don't understand that in your online fighting with people about right and left, you are, enjoy yourself if you're doing it, but you are wasting your energy, because there is no outcome of that is going to solve anything. And most people, you're not going to change their mind. Like you say, there are some people that are oblivious to
there's a
anything. But
lot of people that are oblivious, dude.
put
But
your energy in things that will help yourself.
yeah, but here's a major problem that I want to broach, because I'm not 100% sold on if this is inevitable or not, as far as actual action. Not saying that it's not right that that's what's needed to fix it, but I'm not 100% sure that action will actually take place. But here's the thing: if you see a dissolution of the union, the world will fall into absolute shit, dude.
I think so too. But it is already it is essentially dissolved anyways. California is not even a United States.
Wait a minute. I'm not going to agree with that completely, model. If the hegemony, which is what we have right now of the United States, dissolves, you will see at least 20 years of absolute chaos. The nature abhors a vacuum, and
Yeah.
the global politics will go crazy, and not just here, but
I don't think you're
everywhere.
disagreeing with me. That's what I've said. This is 2 to 3 years of horrific, nightmarish stuff going on, and then after that, it's a decade or more of just chaos.
Yeah.
This
Well, I mean,
is not a 6-month deal.
I think that the United States might hunker down because we're still armed to the teeth, and almost all of our states do have nuclear weapons in them. I mean, people don't know it, but that's the truth. And my state specifically has a whole bunch of chemical and biological weapons because that's where they try to store them and get rid of them. But most people won't mess with the United States so much as like try to invade.
I'm not talking
But
about that. I wasn't talking about that at all. I was just talking about
no,
a global breakdown.
oh yeah, there'll be a global breakdown as the new order shakes itself into place.
I'll give you an example that's happened just recently. This nonsense going on about how other countries are accusing us of stealing shipments of masks. The world has a different standard of what they expect from the United States. What other country on Earth would be expected to supply other countries' hospitals before their own? Nobody.
Right.
But all of a sudden, it's a big thing that America is keeping the 3M supplies here for our own hospitals. Too bad.
Yeah.
Well, and then,
It's
if we do
ridiculous.
avoid like dissolution or fracturing or whatever, we need to rethink how this country has been run for the last 30 years. We need to stop relying on anybody but us, and our allies need to pay if they need to give reciprocity. No more of this free riding bullshit.
Absolutely.
That's fair. Yeah. Well, it's doom and gloom. But
See, it's not though. It's not though. The reality is, Japan will be fine.
Oh yeah.
You guys are too strong as a nation. It'd have to be a mass, which I definitely don't want to happen, but it'd have to be a mass genocide of the Japanese people to really crush them.
And I don't think we'll leave them out to dry because, I mean, there's been some heavy ties between us and the Japanese, at least the Americans.
We do enemies, because when we're enemies, we do
Yeah.
terrible to each other.
And that's the thing. Like the Japanese have many things that are in common with the West,
Sure.
although they are very Japanese. But I think they feel a kinship, or maybe even the fact that we didn't take their country and utterly ravage it. We did a couple of bad things.
Thank
But
MacArthur for that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and thank MacArthur for that. I mean, thank the fact that there are certain people who had an idea how wars should be fought, but also how winning them should be done. I mean, we were the ones that kept basically the French from going into Germany and taking every last damn thing there. They were pretty upset about things, even though they didn't really fight that much for it.
Now, Chester, I see a lot of names in our chat of people that I like and I've known for a while now.
Hmm.
How can people actually prepare?
Well, that's a fair point, and I guess that would be the ending points for us. And I think each person should give their own. But me personally, I'm not in it, right? But I would say that you should definitely have yourself a set of supplies in your home. If you live
Mm-hmm.
in a place that's dangerous, then I suppose you could have a bug out bag. But in general, most of you would hunker down in your home just like you're doing now. So make sure you have some basic supplies. I also think another thing that's what we've learned out of this current situation is that you should, save. Put some money aside for a rainy day, right?
Yep.
Now, if things hit the fan, I guess that money won't matter, but that's not the point. You should be more prepared. Do like your grandma and grandpa did. All right. And just have a general ability to sustain yourself. Don't be a person who requires everything from the government and has to go to Walmart every day to get whatever. Try to have a little bit of preparation. Now, these guys might go more extreme than me, but I'm of an ilk that I don't think it's going to go that radical. I think we're going to see things come to a head because in this current situation of the ongoing pandemic, one thing we've seen is even though there's politicians who are screaming and saying the same dumb stuff that they've been saying the whole time, we're also seeing a vast majority of politicians who have stopped their nonsense and are dealing with a problem. Right, because
Yes.
it's serious. It's no longer fun and games. This is something that needs to be dealt with. So that's actually very comforting to me that we're seeing so many of these politicians, supposed Democrats, that are actually stopping what they're doing and trying to help. Not all, but so I don't know that things are going to go that hot. But that would be
They're slipping back into the politics, though, again.
we are,
Now,
but also eat the fruit in moderation. Least you run out of toilet paper. Once again, you don't need toilet paper. You don't need toilet paper, dude. Get a freaking towel and wash it.
the washcloth, yeah, you're
Yeah, I mean,
fine.
you don't need toilet paper. I
Use
mean,
your hand and wash your hand. It's really not that big a deal.
Yeah, there are ways to deal with that sort of thing.
Spend
People
your
get a
money
little
on
bit freaked out. What you really need to have, all right, this is my church has been big on this for a long time about having a food storage and planning storage for the rainy day or the apocalypse, whatever. You need canned and dry food, all right, and you need to keep those in sealed containers if they're dry food, so they don't get vermin in them. You need water, and that either comes out of the tap if things stay good, or you need to know how to sterilize the water, which means boiling it or purifying it through some sort of filtration system. Those are things that you can look into. They're not that hard to do. Make sure you have some containers for water just in case, because doing it every time gets a little bit cumbersome after a little while. You need a weapon, and I would say more than one: a handgun and a rifle. The rifle should have a scope. The handgun should be easy to operate. Okay. You should have at least 100 rounds of both types of ammunition. I would get a larger, not just a small, like um, uh, 22 rifle, which are really good for doing small game, but something larger like a 270 or something like that. You can look into it and know what I'm talking about. The smaller the bullet, the less you spoil the meat if you're going hunting, but you also have to be better shot. You
yeah.
also might want to have a shotgun. Those are things you need to have. And then when you're in your house, make sure you know how to fortify your house if you have to. Also have the bug out bag just in case, and a little bit of extra fuel somewhere like 5 gallons, 10 gallons, something like that, so you can get out of somewhere and get at least 100, 120, 200 miles away.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, can I ask a question real quick, Slick, if you don't mind,
yeah,
regarding your point? I've heard in Europe, not in America, but I've heard in Europe there are rumors, I guess, coming out of Europe that because everything's locked down and people are staying home, there's actually been a huge rash of criminality. People running around stealing stuff, breaking in stuff, even breaking into homes, home invasion and stuff.
Yeah.
So even aside from what we're talking about in this kind of situation, criminals be criminals, yo, right?
Hmm.
And that wasn't a racial reference at all. It wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't. Don't ban me, YouTube. But the thing being is, you should have a gun anyway in this
Yeah.
situation.
And you should know how to use it within your house as well. There are
Yeah. Oh
certain
yeah.
rounds you don't want to
Oh
use in your
God, yeah.
house because you'll blow through walls and shit,
Shotgun,
and you might
don't
hit
high
somebody on the other
caliber.
side.
Oh my God, dude,
Right.
that is so true. Yeah.
Right.
One thing
A
I
shotgun.
disagree
Shotgun needs what? One thing you disagree?
with this all this stuff on social media is don't tell people what you got.
Oh
Don't
no,
tell
that's
people
Yeah.
good.
you got a year's worth of food.
That's good.
You know, and people do this all the time. They put all their guns on the bed and then they take a photograph and post it online. Don't do stuff like that.
that's, that's not very smart.
That's when I say, well, thank you. You made this much easier for me.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean,
I
that's a
mean,
fair
the
point,
way
right?
I've thought about like how the egresses in my house is. Um, I have a pretty defensible one in the front and the back, not so much, because of the way the construction of the house is. However, I do know all my my neighbors and stuff, so that's not a bad thing.
I've not put too much stock in like fortifying the structure because it's a wood structure, and I know that a glass bottle with a rag and some gasoline is going to flush me out of here really quick. So I do have like in mind of like things that are prioritized. For instance, I always keep a bag. I do keep a, I wouldn't call it a bug out bag because it's certainly bigger than that. And it's not something that I want to have to carry around with all day long, but it's something I can grab and get out of here with very quick.
Hmm.
So you,
Boy.
you do have to, you need to really understand where you live for one thing. And I am fortunate where I live. I've got two freshwater springs feeding creeks on either side of the property. Um, we have probably 2,000 acres of woods behind us with lots of deer. There's lots of open fields for planting. I've got 500,000 heirloom seeds in the freezer of every different vegetable. So I'm not worried about stuff like that. The thing is that I think a lot of people now are looking at prepping, and it is overwhelming if you first start. And unfortunately, if you haven't ever thought about this, you don't have the luxury of casually working on a few things here and there. So what would you say for priority? I would definitely like as far as food types, um, you can't just go out and buy 100 pounds of rice and think that you're going to be fine, because you still may starve to death. There's something called appetite fatigue, and a lot of third world countries, they even have a staple food. They might have grain of some type, but they still starve to death because if you, for a human being, if you eat the same thing for a prolonged period of time, you will actually get so sick of it that you'll rather not eat. And that is
Yeah.
why a lot of these countries where the people starve to death, where they could be
You can
eating
get
their
scurvy
forage.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
certainly
So,
you need
but I
some
do
kind of
think
vitamin
like
C.
you
Uh,
need beans, you need oatmeal because oatmeal is very high in iron. You can get your vitamin D from the sun. 15 minutes, put your face in the sun, and you can get enough vitamin D for the day.
Unless you're a white person, you make your own damn vitamin D. But whatever. Okay, go on.
Well, you still need sun. You still need to get out in the sun.
It's not
And
true, actually. For the Northern Celts, we don't need any damn sun at all, dude. Anyway, I'm sorry.
yeah,
Basically, you're for the
regardless,
majority
I
of
still
humanity. You're right. Yeah.
get out in the sun. It's good for you. The UV is good for you. But start looking at staples that can last. Don't buy stuff that you normally wouldn't eat. That's
Mm.
foolish because you're going to have to cycle your food. You can't just buy something and throw it in a closet for 5 years. Some things you can, but you need to be cycling through. You need to cycle through your bottled water. You need to cycle through your gasoline. Like Jimmy said, make sure you got 5 gallons of gas. Well, you got 6 months before that starts to go bad. So you need to start understanding how some of this stuff works. You know,
And
it
he's
don't.
right, totally right about cycling. You have to cycle because the grains go bad after about 4 years. They're not
Yeah,
good
and
anymore.
even things like pasta, the oils will go rancid. So you have to cycle through your food. Uh, Dry foods like things like prepared meals. I see people all the time getting like boxed mac and cheese and stuff like that. That packet of cheese will go bad in like 3 years. So you do have to cycle your food. So get stuff that you like to eat that you would eat normally. Now I eat rice several times a week. I love rice, but I don't like plain rice, and I would get sick of that really quick. So think about things that you like.
Mhm.
Do you like soy sauce one day? Rice is such a good staple because you can make desserts with it. You can, do all kinds of things with it. So
Mhm.
now while you've got internet, start looking at recipes, start printing stuff off, get a 3-ring binder and start making a little book. Look at cycles for planting, when you should be planting certain vegetables.
There's also one thing I would say for anybody who's doing prep or just having a food storage. You need to go out and look for a local local apiary, people who make honey, and get a local honey. The local honey is the best because it has the stuff that helps you with like allergies and antioxidants.
True.
Plus, it's a superfood, and once it goes to like sugars, like it solidifies, that damn stuff will last pretty much in perpetuity.
No,
Um,
forever. Yeah,
and-
the honey,
yeah.
real honey.
So,
Yeah.
and you can live on that stuff. 2 tablespoons a day, you can live on that stuff. It's not going to be fun, but you'll have the energy.
Go to
And
a county fair or a flea market, you're
Yeah.
going to have
yeah,
a local honey guy, and
Now,
get
and
your
go and
local honey.
it's not going to be cheap, but it's damn worth it when you need it.
yeah, there's a couple of interesting points what you're saying about the food and variety. Here in Japan, they have this general rule that you should have 32 different ingredients a day. That's how they look
Oh,
at it.
for the menu for flavors and
No,
things like that.
for good health.
Yeah.
No, just for good health. 32
Yeah, you
I
different
can
did
get
I did
things.
forget that you need to have first aid too.
Oh yeah,
You need to
absolutely.
have a good first aid kit that you don't touch. Just leave it there,
Yeah.
and then have the stuff you use around the house.
There's also another thing because for me, I'm leaning more toward the fact that I know there's a lot of looting and crap going on in Europe, even though they're trying not to report it. And I imagine there's some of that going on in America too. But that's more concerning to me on this conversation than the long term. Well, I don't know, maybe not. But and let me reiterate, right? There is a business here in town that went out of business and has been out of business for quite a while. Now, some businesses close and new ones will build on top of it or whatever, as usual. But there's one that's been down for quite a while and it's just sitting there. And it's still in really good condition. Now, of course, if you don't have a building where people are inside of it, it tends to deteriorate, of course. Look in this in juxtaposition to your own town. Go out and find the abandoned building, which is certainly there, and look at it, right? Here, the building is exactly as it was when it was shut. The windows are still there, the doors are still locked, it's untouched. Go look at the one in your neighborhood and see what it looks like. Look how much graffiti is all over it. Look how many windows have been blown out and they've had to board out with wood. Look at what's going to happen to the inside stripped of all copper and wiring. You live in a different environment than I do. Japanese people don't do
Absolutely.
this shit, but you have
Look
certain
at what
elements in
happens
your
on
community that do.
Look what happens on Black Friday. Now imagine when people can't get food.
Yeah, I mean it's just it's a real concern that during a time like the pandemic where everyone's supposed to be staying home, people are running about taking advantage of it. And seeing as a lot of cops are calling in sick because kind of I mean they shouldn't, but it's kind of hard to blame them. Uh, I'm thinking it's free freaking reign for the criminals, and in some places they've actually just done that legally. So this is a concern as well. And
Well, and Thundaro said earlier, most people don't realize how fragile this whole thing is, man.
yeah.
It's a balanced scale, and it doesn't take much to go on either plate, and it's gonna go.
Yeah. No, you're right, Joe. We're ending it right now. I got to go to work anyway. But I guess the last one is Thundero. Has he spoken yet?
I'm going to be real quick because I actually got to go. But yeah, just pretty much everything they said. Make sure you always also have, if you have any meds you need, get an extra supply of those if you can. I know my wife, she gets a 3 month supply now because of the way her insurance is structured. So, but get an extra supply of that if you can, depending on what it is. Other than that, you just have to keep the ability to move if necessary, right? Don't let yourself get too tied down too much unless you're in a strong community who you know will have your back, right?
Hmm.
Like if or you're isolated, very rural.
Yeah.
Um, Other than that, if you're in a city or even the suburbs, be ready to move or be ready to get to where there are other people who have your back. Um, know your neighbors. A lot of people don't. They don't know their names, but just know enough of them. You don't have to know all of them, but know enough of them that you know you can go talk to them if something goes crazy. They'll warn you, stuff like that. My one neighbor across the street from us when we first moved in, he said pretty much everybody around here watches each other's back, and for the most part, we all do. No real troubles. Nobody causes any trouble. But just simple stuff like that that used to be normal, that used to be what we did as communities, as people, has been lost in the last 30 or 40 years. Hard. Bring that back in your own life, and then when stuff goes bad, it will go a lot less bad than it could have.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than being alone in a crisis. Nothing. You can't even imagine what that's like when you have nothing to turn to help for help. Um, the other thing is as they said, if something happens to the American empire, things are going to go crazy in the world. And they are. But what I truly believe will happen, it won't be as long as a lot of people think, because the people that made America what it is will not be gone just because the government's gone. They won't be gone just because the power structure that's quite literally been oppressing us for at least 100 years is gone. They're still there. They'll build something. It might take a little while, but there will be order. The American people, as much as we love, liberty and all these things that we talk about, the American spirit, one thing we love more than anything is order.
Yeah.
That is why this quarantine stuff is going on. That's why all of this is going on. That's why the people in my area, according to the data, have been the absolute best in the Great Lakes region as far as obeying, staying away from each other, doing what they're supposed to be doing. Um, because I genuinely believe that the people, that core spirit of people, the Americans, the real Americans, they're not dead. They're not as many as they used to be. And when this stuff goes down, things will be okay eventually. For a lot of people, it won't be okay ever again, but for most of us, it will be.
Some of them live
So
in
I don't
foreign lands.
despair because, this could happen this year, that next year, 10 years. I think it'll be before the end of this decade, or it won't be at all. If it doesn't happen, this is perfect opportunities for it will be this decade. Um, but don't fall into despair. Despair is the worst thing you can do. It's beyond anything. It's a form of existence nobody wants. Nobody, trust me, nobody wants to live that way. So don't allow yourself to do it. Happiness is a choice. Choose to be happy. Don't let the darkness in this world take away your joy.
Well, I will also be looking for armed individuals for a raiding party because I'm going to have to go and rescue Cat.
It's true.
So if anybody
true.
is interested in doing
That's
that,
true.
let me know.
Rescuing a cat?
I will help save the cat. Cat with a K. Yes.
But I do got to bounce, guys. I'll talk to you later.
Later. Well, we gotta go, so I'll namaste that on that. Yeah, no, interesting conversation today, guys. And I don't know how much TFT was in it. Some people call it pure conspiracy theory. Is it? I don't know. Certainly a depressing conversation, but an interesting one to have, especially I think topical to the ongoing problem. But nevertheless, thank you all very much. That was interesting. Tomorrow, of course, we have the 9 p.m. Eastern Standard show where we'll be talking about comic books and what's going on in the book world, which is quite a bit. And of course, we have our other things later on in the week. We do appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. Make sure you hit that sub button and the like as well. It does help us. Yeah, well, thank you very much, guys. And later.
Bye bye.